The history of these lands is deeper than that. Thousands of years ago, the first people settled in the American continent. It is not exactly known how the Native Americans first settled in these territories, but a theory says that people migrated from Eurasia starting 30,000 years ago, across a land bridge known as Beringia. This connected Siberia
30,000 years ago, oh my gosh.
to North America during the Ice Age. This migration continued until 10,000 years ago.
Hello everyone, hello. My name is Alex and I'm studying English, and today we will watch another video, and this video will be about USA, about history of the USA, and this video named the history of the United States in 10 minutes. Yes, and you can support me. Yes, you can leave like and subscribe to me. But at first I want to say you why I want to watch this video about history. Why I like watch video about history. Because I think what history are important. Yes, history are helping us to understand how this world are working. Yes, and of course it is really important for me because I want to understand how this is working, and I want to make decisions. Yes, and to make my opinion from history. Yes, with understanding history, and when I will understand history, I will do more correct decisions. I think so, and my opinion will be more correct, maybe. Yes, okay. I hope you understand my thoughts. I hope at this. Okay, and yes, let's go. Let's watch. And we will watch, of course, with subtitles. Yes.
Even if the United States of America emerged as an independent country after 1776 and recognized in 1783, the history of these lands is deeper than that. Thousands of years ago, the first people settled in the American continent. It is not exactly known how the Native Americans first settled in these territories, but a theory says that people migrated from Eurasia starting 30,000 years ago, across a land bridge known as Beringia. This connected Siberia
30,000 years ago, oh my gosh.
to North America during the Ice Age. This migration continued until 10,000 years ago. At that time, a glacial period ended, and the land bridge became submerged by the rising ocean. But before we move any further,
Submerged. I want to translate this. Submerged. Submerged. Ah, yes, I get it.
Submerged.
Yes.
we want to give a big thank you to Raid.
And here we can see, of course, ads. Yes. And I love this game, and I think it is a really interesting game, but we will watch, of course.
Raid has almost a perfect score on the Play Store. This proves just how silver and an epic.
One moment. I love, of course, games, but we have another purpose.
The early inhabitants were called the Paleoamericans. In time, they migrated even deeper in Americas, and they formed tribes and nations. They created interesting civilizations, developing their own culture. Among the cultures that existed here, we can mention Adena culture, Iroquois culture, Coles Creek culture, Puebloan culture, and Mississippian culture.
Oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cultures. Oh my gosh. Adena, Iroquois, Coles Creek, Puebloan, Mississippian. I never heard about these cultures before. Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. And maybe I should watch videos about these cultures. Yes, because it is really interesting. Yes, it is really interesting. Okay.
But another part of today, the United States has an interesting and different history. Speaking about Hawaii, this land wasn't inhabited until the 1st centuries AD. Native development started with the settlement of Polynesian people between the 1st and 10th centuries. Starting in the 15th century, European colonization began. In 1492,
Yes.
a Spanish expedition headed by the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus sailed west to find a new trade route to the Far East, but landed in what came to be known to Europeans as the New World. After this event, in the next decades, more and more ships sailed west to establish colonies and trade posts. The Spaniards began building their American empire, using islands such as Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola as bases. They expanded hugely. France founded colonies in eastern North America, a number of Caribbean islands, and small coastal parts of South America. Portugal colonized Brazil. The eastern seacoast was settled primarily by English colonists in the 17th century, along with a much smaller number of Dutch and Swedes. The first successful English colony, Jamestown, was established in 1607.
Okay. It is the first city, Jamestown. Maybe I should watch about this city more information. Jamestown. Yes, community college, Jamestown. Drama television series, Jamestown. Oh, I didn't knew what exist movies about. Okay, but I want to find one moment. I want to find Wikipedia. Okay. Why here in Russian language? Oh, yes. I want to find in English language, of course. It's in Virginia. Yes, this city in Virginia was the first permanent English settlement in the Americas. Okay. And here in 1607, and town fort was in 1607 and town in 1619. And here we can see this beautiful picture. Oh, the ruined tower in 17th century. Yes, I love this very much. And here we can see, of course, maps, different maps. It was a historical country colony, Kingdom of England, and colony of Virginia, and now it is present country, it is United States. I'm very glad what sometimes I'm understanding what is happening here. And it will be interesting to read me this text about this city after watching this video. Yes, it is really interesting. And here we can see these beautiful stamps, issue of 1907. Okay. And yes, this city are really interesting and have our own history. And I want to know how much people live there now. Jamestown, Wikipedia, population. It is really interesting for me. 31,000 people. Maybe we can find the schedule. Yes, demographics. And we can see twin town sister. Yes, Finland, China, Italy. Yes, it is really yes. I love when you start to understand something. I love to use this information. Yes, I want to find. Yes, I want to find the schedule. Okay, if I will not find anyway, don't judge me. Ah, here we can see this population. Yes. I get it. But anyway, in the 1950s, this town had more population, 1930s, more population than today. It is a really strange situation, but I love little towns. I really love little towns. For me, it is really interesting, and I prefer to live in little towns. If I will, my dream it is to live in country where people speak in English. Why I want to do this? Because I want to speak in English fluently, and I want to understand culture. And you can understand culture only when you live in this atmosphere. And it is my, of course, opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I want to live in a little city. I prefer this. Yes. Yes, okay. Let's go. Let's watch.
On the James River in Virginia, new wave of settlers arrived in the late 17th century and established commercial agriculture based on tobacco. Even though there were some conflicts between the Native Americans and English settlers, the colonies managed to expand pretty fast and more people settled in. Each of the 13 American colonies had slightly different governmental structure. In fact, a colony was ruled by a governor appointed from London. This governor controlled the administration and relied upon a locally elected legislature to vote taxes and make laws. By the 18th century, the American colonies were growing very rapidly, and as a result of low death rates, along with ample supplies of land and food, this attracted a heavy flow of immigrants. The tobacco and rice plantations imported African slaves for labor from the British colonies in the West Indies, and by the 1770s, African slaves comprised a fifth of the American population. The question of independence from Britain did not arise as long as the colonies needed British military support against the French and Spanish powers. The French and Indian War was an event created by the political development of the colonies. It was also part of the larger 7 Years' War. Britain beat French forces, and France lost their colonies and territories in Canada and Louisiana. The war was costly, and Britain needed money. The British Parliament passed the Stamp Act of 1765, imposing a tax on the colony
Stamp Act of 1760
without going through the colonial legislatures.
Yes.
The issue was drawn. Did Parliament have this right to tax Americans who were not represented in it, crying, "No taxation without representation"? The colonists refused to pay the taxes, as tensions escalated in the late 1760s and early 1770s. The Boston Tea Party in 1773 was marked as the start of the Revolution. It happened in the town of Boston to protest against the new tax on tea. Parliament quickly responded the next year with the Coercive Acts, stripping Massachusetts of its historic right of self-government and putting it under army rule, which sparked outrage and resistance in all 13 colonies. Leaders from all 13 colonies gathered and created the First Continental Congress to coordinate their resistance.
I love this animation. This animation is simple but beautiful, and you can understand this picture very well. Yes, because yes, it's simple, and yes, I love this very much.
The Congress called for a boycott of British trade, published a list of rights and grievances, and petitioned the king for redress of those grievances. It wasn't about independence at that point, but this appeal had no effect, and so the Second Continental Congress was created in 1775 in order to organize the defense of the colonies against the British Army. The 13 colonies began a rebellion against British rule in 1775 and proclaimed their independence in 1776 as the United States of America. In the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783, the Americans captured the British invasion army at Saratoga in 1777.
I want to say I didn't heard about a lot of things. And I want to say also what when you watch these videos, I'm trying to truly understand what was happening, because it is really interesting, yes. And of course, it is really, this video also very informative. I didn't know about cultures, what was before in this land. 5 cultures, oh my gosh. And if you know this, I would ask you, know you this information, I knew you this information before or not? For me it is interesting, yes.
Secured the Northeast and encouraged the French to make a military alliance with
One moment. Hey France, Great Britain is your rival, and I'm fighting with them.
the United States. France brought in Spain and the Netherlands, thus balancing the military and naval forces on each side, as Britain had no allies. General George Washington was an excellent organizer and administrator, who worked successfully with Congress and the state governors, selecting and mentoring his senior officers, supporting and training his troops, and maintaining an idealistic Republican army. The American Revolution was a success, and at the Peace of Paris of 1783, their independence was recognized. And even so, the former colonies gained more than expected. The expansion to the west started, incorporating the Amerindian lands, west of the Appalachian Mountains. A deal was made by the United States President Thomas Jefferson in 1803. He bought the Louisiana Territory from France. Initial diplomats sent to France were allowed to spend up to $10 million in order to buy just New Orleans, and, if possible, the West Bank
just New Orleans
of the Mississippi River.
Yes.
But the French government said that for $5 million more, all of the Louisiana Territory would be sold. The president approved the deal, and the U.S. doubled its size. In the middle of the 19th century, some cessions were happening, and Texas in joining the Union in 1845, and after the war against Mexican Empire, the United States will take important lands and expand even further. In 1861, after Abraham Lincoln was elected, some states from the South, the Confederation, attacked the rest. The South Revolt was happening due to controversy over the enslavement of black people. In 1860, the United States was led by Abraham Lincoln, supporting banning slavery in all territories. War broke out in April 1861, when secessionist forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina. After 4 years of war, the Union achieved its victory, and the Confederates were defeated. National unity was slowly restored. The national government expanded its power. The 19th century was a period of economic expansion. More and more industries were created, and also the ascent was put on infrastructure. In 1898, the American-Spanish War is happening. Americans are
Yes.
winning in short term some battles, and at the Treaty of Paris, U.S. is getting the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. At the beginning of the 20th century, World War I started. Even though the U.S. was neutral due to German attacks on the American ships, and due to their intentions to make Mexico join against the U.S., the Americans joined the Allies. After this event, the economy was growing and all was good.
America such a interesting history. Yes, and this history very interesting for me. Okay, let's go.
Until the Great Depression,
Yes.
which started in 1929. This event shook the world and created a base on which the Second World War will start. United States joined the Allies after being attacked at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, by the Japanese Empire. Americans fought a distant war in Europe, Pacific, and they provided supplies to the Soviets, armored cars, motorized equipment, food, etc. Winning battle by battle in the Pacific, getting closer to the Japanese mainland, and after D-Day in Europe in 1944, the Americans managed to have a great impact and to help a lot on the Allied side. The war ended in 1945. Germany capitulated in May, and Japan in September after the 2 nuclear bombs dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The United States and Soviet Union emerged as rival superpowers in the aftermath of World War II. This was a period known as the Cold War. The two countries confronted each other indirectly in the arms race, proxy wars across the world, including the Korean and Vietnam Wars, and propaganda campaigns. The purpose of this was to stop the spread of communism. In the 1960s, waves of civil rights movements started, rights of voting and freedom of movement to African Americans and other racial minorities. The Cold War ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union. After, the United States has been focusing on modern conflicts in the Middle East. The beginning of the 21st century saw the September 11th attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda in 2001, which was later followed by the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. In 2008, the United States had its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. A big thank you again to our sponsor.
Yes, I watched this video and it is a really interesting video, I think so. And of course, I liked this video very much because it is helping me to improve my speaking skills, listening skills, and maybe the most important, to understand what was happening before us. Yes, because our life are short, and this video helping us to improve our understanding. Where are we living? What is happening in this world? Yes, and I now know what USSR and USA had good relationships. Yes, they had one enemy. Yes, and they were friends. And I hope what we will Russia, I'm only for peace. Yes, I'm always only for peace, because I'm calmly man, simple man, and I love peace between everyone. Yes, for me it is important. Yes, and I hope for you too it is important, and I hope you can support my purpose. My purpose is simple. Yes, and I think you know what I want to speak in English beautiful. And you can support me, you can leave like and subscribe to me. Yes, I appreciate it very much. And of course, see you next time.